Welcome to the Hornets Hivecast, the official podcast of your Charlotte Hornets. Here's your host, Sam Farber.
Welcome to another edition of the Hornets Hivecast, your Hornets podcast with all the notes, quotes, and daily buzz around your favorite NBA team. I'm Sam Farber, and it is a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us once again as we continue our player profile series, today focusing on Hornets center Bismack Biyombo. Helping me talk about his most recent season, we have got the author of so many great articles on Hornets.com. You hear him often here on the Hornets Hivecast. He's the Hornets coordinator of digital media content, Sam Perley, back for another Two Sams edition of the HHC. And Sam, let's get right into it. Bismack Biyombo brought onto the team to give some veteran influence to the franchise that had a very young core, and also to be a consistent piece for the team at the center position. How do you think he fared on both of those endeavors?
Yes, thank you for having me. Back for a third season. Obviously very familiar here in two stints now with the team. Had been a free agent coming into the season, and I think one of the motivations for the front office to bring him back was, you had an expedited offseason, you needed familiarity, you had a very young team, you had a lot of veterans from last year that were no longer on the team, Nick Batum, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Marvin Williams. Then you had a new veteran coming in Gordon Hayward, who, although is very experienced in the NBA, obviously didn't have necessarily connections with some of the younger guys. So I think the main thing you wanted out of Bismack Biyombo this year was a veteran presence that knew the system, that guys were familiar with, comfortable with, and that could kind of, provide an example of what to do, what not to do on and off the court. And I think something like that was really invaluable, particularly this season with all the craziness going on. So overall, I thought, the Hornets got exactly what they were expecting from Biz this year. You got a guy, he's not going to go out and score 25, 30 points a night, but he's going to give you 7, 8 points, 3 or 4 or 5 rebounds, a couple of blocks, and kind of provide that presence around the rim. So overall, I think he provided a lot for this Hornets team, both on and off the court.
3 or 4 blocks per game would have been very noteworthy, but even what he was able to provide, I think, is worth noting. He was top 20 in the NBA in blocks per game, and games where he performed better on that defensive end in terms of being a rim stopper, the team did see more success. They were 12-8 in games which he had 2 or more blocks in, and given the fact that his time on the floor fluctuated based off of how the rotation was going, sometimes, if you're only playing in a handful of minutes or 10 or 12 minutes a game, it's hard to accumulate multiple blocks per game, but you look throughout the season, there were quite a few of those games where he was out there on the floor for 20-plus minutes, and even though, as you mentioned, offensively, he's not someone you look to for 20 points in a contest, the team could somewhat depend on him for those 2 or more block shots.
Yeah, and another thing I think that had to be kind of taken into consideration, I think the original plan for the year was to start him at the backup 5 and then maybe kind of ease P.J. Washington into that sort of small ball role. And then come opening night, Cody Zeller broke his hand. He was out, 4 or 5 weeks. Biz slides into the starting lineup. They kind of got to get P.J. up to speed a little bit more on that small ball 5. Then he played really well in that position. So really kind of the timelines, I think, going into the season sort of veered really quickly on opening night in terms of the Cody injury and then how kind of quickly P.J. Washington got accustomed to that 5 spot. So it kind of took on a little bit of a different plan maybe than what they originally hoped for Biz. I think it was, primarily second unit kind of guy. That was kind of the role. And then obviously that shifted a little bit with Cody's absence. So I think he, adjusted well to sort of the fluctuating, just like everyone had to do, the fluctuating role that he had to take on this year.
Before we hear from Biz, do you have a favorite moment from his most recent season here with the Hornets?
Favorite moment? I think just in general, how much it seemed like some of the younger guys on the team really gravitated towards him. I mean, say what you want about his career, but he's been in the NBA for 10 years. You have to be doing something right. I mean, there's a very, very short list of guys that have been in the NBA for 10 years. And a lot of that is the off-the-court stuff and the leadership and the role model that he sort of is to a lot of these younger guys. That was a guy that LaMelo Ball really leaned on this year. They had similar backgrounds coming to the NBA from overseas. So I really enjoyed just kind of the playful conversations. He always kept things light, making jokes on Zoom with some of the younger guys. He kept things light in a season that sometimes it didn't feel like there was, with all the protocols and weirdness and COVID and everything, it's sometimes hard to kind of, maybe find humor all the time. But I think Biz was really good at kind of keeping things light, keeping it fun, keeping things energetic, and being somebody that the younger guys could really look up to.
I would agree with you. There was a lot of conversations that we would have with Biz, and he just has a very good way about him and very honest and genuine perspective on the game, on the world that only Biz can bring. So it was fun getting to see that firsthand from him this past season for me personally, and I think that's a collective thought as well. We're going to let you hear from the man himself. Bismack Biyombo shares his thoughts on this most recent season with the Hornets next here on the Hornets Hivecast.
Be sure to check out the Hornets Fan Shop at Spectrum Center, now open Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Check out all the newest Hornets gear or grab a new pair of J's. It's an easy trip on the light rail, or you can shop from the comfort of your own home 24/7 at HornetsFanShop.com.
Sam Farber and Sam Purley here with you on the Hornets Hivecast, and now let's welcome in Hornets center Bismack Biyombo. Biz, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It ended up being a season where you finished in the top 20 in the NBA in blocks per game, and you helped guide Buzz City to its first postseason experience in the last 5 years. How would you evaluate this season for yourself?
I don't think we accomplished anything. I think it's a season where we missed an opportunity to be in the playoff. I mean, nobody played for postseason to be on for playing tournaments. You play to get in the playoff. And obviously we missed the opportunity to be in the playoff. Quite frankly, we're still kind of digesting the last game we played, so spending some time on that. And, once you can get over the hump, then you can get back to work.
A unique season with all the health and safety protocols and dealing with COVID-19. What's one thing that you're going to be glad to be rid of as the NBA starts to get back to normal, hopefully next season?
I think one thing that you'd love to have, obviously we had it for a little bit, was having the fans back in the building. I think that was great on things that you missed, the interaction, the noises, the boos and all these things. It comes with a lot, the energy of the game being translated to the fans and then back into you guys. So that's one of the things that I'm kind of more excited about and looking forward to more than anything.
What's one thing that was forced upon you all from COVID-19 that you wouldn't mind keeping around in terms of new ideas, new ways of approaching things?
I think the testing was not bad, obviously, to keep everybody safe. You kind of understand a little more about, the people you bring around you. Had to be a little more careful with that. I think those were the things that I thought was great. Guys are more disciplined. And those are the things you probably hope guys stays as disciplined moving forward.
On and off the floor, whichever you'd like, what was your favorite moment from this past season?
On the floor, I think the fun that the team had, just no ego, just people being, trusting the next guy, leaning on the next guy. The thing off the floor is just not being able to go nowhere, man. You stay home. This is the first time I spent the whole season without going to a restaurant once, which is brutal. Usually you play in the city, you have a desire to go to dinner with like ex-teammate and friends and can do it. So it's been brutal, but we hope that will change in the future. So we could get back to at least have that friendship, with other guys other than FaceTiming and talking on the phone.
Silver lining there, what got better, your ordering skills or your cooking skills?
My cooking skills, I'll say. I observe my chef a lot more than I'm used to. I knew if something was missing in the food, which was now becoming too much because now you observe it too much because you have a lot of time. But also, spend some time reading a little more than usual because you have to find ways to put new information in the mind and obviously focusing more on the business side and all that.
You had a great relationship, or at least it seemed you did from day one, with the rookie LaMelo Ball. You've seen him grow in his rookie season. What do you expect to see from him in his growth with a normal, hopefully, off season and finally time to work in an NBA environment, which he really didn't get his rookie season?
I think what I see is that he's a kid that is a good listener. Like I say, he's a hard worker, and more than anything, he's just a fun kid to be around. He's happy, he has good energy, want to learn from everybody, ask a lot of questions, curious, I think it's going to help him spending a lot of time this offseason with our coaches, whatever people he works with. Because now he went through a season. Now we can see the things that he needs to improve on, go back and watch film, make some adjustment. And I think next year is going to come back better, stronger, and it's going to be fine. It's going to be all right.
Last one for you. I saw an interview you did with Ashley Shamadi from Bally Sports South with Dikembe Mutombo, and he promised to send coffee. Did he send you the coffee, and was it any good?
He did send the coffee. I've not tried yet because when I drink coffee, my body somewhat get agitated. So I was waiting for us to kind of go into summertime because I was already dealing with this season. And then drinking coffee, coming to practice, or going to the game, so I was very careful there, but I'll definitely try it. Obviously, it's my big brother, and I'm sure his coffee is great, but I'm curious, and I'm sure I'll give it to friends just to see, whether they like it or not, and I'll be calling him. I've been talking to him, so I'll have to call him back and give him some feedback, but I'm sure it's great.
I'm glad he sent you the coffee. I'm glad he came through, and we look forward to watching your social media for a report, and I'm sure he'd say, make sure next time you fly home, give him a ride. He doesn't need to be flying through all the...
Don't believe that guy, man. How does he know that I fly private? He does fly private. That's why I didn't want to tell people. I fly commercial, man. I don't have that kind of connection he has, but yeah.
Biz, it's been great getting to know you this season. Good luck this offseason.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
We'll have more on Hornets center Bismack Biyombo in just a moment here on the Hornets Hivecast.
Hornets fans, the buzz is building. For season ticket packages for the 2021-2022 season, call 704-HORNETS or visit Hornets.com to chat live with a season ticket representative. Lock in your price today.
Sam Farber and Sam Purley back here with you on the HHC. We're talking Bismack Biyombo today. And Sam, you just heard from the Hornets center. What were your takeaways from what Biz had to say?
Well, my initial one was, I know we just came off a segment where we were talking about how we always keep stuff light, so it was funny kind of hearing his interaction with Dikembe and the coffee, and I'm glad that Dikembe's fellow countryman has come through for him in that angle, so that's good to know. I think the thing that stuck out to me most, and I know maybe the conversations came initially a little bit after that Indiana game, so everyone was still kind of processing everything, but, it's a little atypical to say, we didn't accomplish anything this year. They wanted to be a playoff team, or this team wanted to be a playoff team. They wanted to get into the postseason, and they got into the postseason to an extent, not quite exactly, I think, what they envisioned, because usually Biz is a fairly cheery, glass half full kind of guy, and but he's right. At the end of the day, this is a veteran on the team. He's been to the postseason. He had a big run in Toronto. I think that was kind of the thing that stuck away the most is, this was a good season. They made a step in the right direction, but I think at the end of the day, it's a little not as fulfilling as I think many of the guys wanted to. And I think it's good that you have a veteran on the team kind of setting that tone, saying, we did okay this year considering the circumstances, but we haven't accomplished anything, guys. We need to keep moving forward, keep taking that next step, and hopefully come, 2022, at this time next year, we're playing playoff games.
Yeah, I would agree with you. First, pardon for the inside baseball conversation on anyone who tuned in and maybe has not seen some of Biz's other interviews. The one with Ashley Shamadi was great. I highly recommend it. Go out and find it. It's him, Ashley, and Dikembe Mutombo. So that's where some of the coffee talk derives from. But I agree with you. He's really the only one that's come out and said we didn't accomplish anything. And I think it is a not pessimistic way to look at the season, but it's a more veteran way to look at the season. And I'm not sure it is one he would have had based off of the first month of the season. And when I say that, I mean, I don't think going into this year, the Hornets had a lot of expectations, at least externally, that this was going to be a postseason team. I think some of those generated as the team found success. And then as the injuries built up, that peeled away some of the potential to get as high as they could have when it comes to the postseason.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think you go into the year, and I think everybody didn't really know what to expect. I think internally you expect to make a a development and you expect to take a step forward, but nobody really knew what was going to happen this year with COVID and the protocols, and the Hornets had some games called off because of it, and then the injuries started to mount up for the All-Star break. So I think once you got that taste of how good you can be and then you ended up where you were, it makes it sting a little bit more just in the manner way the season ended. And I think it's good to have perspective because the Hornets did have a shot there. They had a shot. You make that last shot in New York and hold on to Washington, you never know what can happen. You never know if some team that fell to 9 and 10 becomes completely deflated, and you can kind of take advantage of them and sneak into one of those 7th or 8th spots. But I think it's good, and I think another thing too, in terms of a veteran presence, is Biz has been to the postseason, but it's not guaranteed every year. Something could happen next year. If you got a shot to get into the postseason, you want to take advantage of it. Biz knows how hard it is to get into the playoffs. Guys like Cody Zeller, Gordon Hayward, Terry, guys that have been around. It's good that you have a veteran presence telling these young guys that it's not always just naturally linear, that you're going to get better, that you're going to develop. We all hope so, and I think we will. But if you've got an opportunity, you want to take advantage of it, because how invaluable would it have been to have that postseason experience of that first-round playoff series, even if the team didn't advance? So you just never know. Year to year, you never know, and I think it's always important to keep that in mind, that nothing is guaranteed. When you got an opportunity, you got to go and take advantage of it.
Agreed. He came into the year with 23 games of postseason or playoff experience. I guess now we're going to have to differentiate between postseason and playoff from here on out. But you're right. He's someone who has been in the league for about 10 years now and knows just how difficult it is to get there. In terms of the future for Bismack Biyombo, he is an unrestricted free agent. We don't want to make any presumptions or assumptions. That's not our duty here. But just looking in general about what he could bring back to the Hornets or any team, what do you see as the future for Bismack Biyombo?
Couple in that, also Cody Zeller being an unrestricted free agent, so you clearly have at least some sort of focus is going to be on the center position, much like it was last year when Biz and Billy Hernan-Gomez were both free agents. But I think you're going to get the same stuff. I don't think anything is really going to change from Biz, and certainly off the court with the leadership, the veteran presence, the comfort, knowing the system, knowing what's required. He's never going to be one of these guys that says, I have to start, I've got to play 30 minutes a night, I've got to get X amount of shots. I think, he's very, very cognizant and aware of his role in this league and where he stands. And, I think it's really hard to kind of measure the value in terms of the off-the-court stuff and the intangibles and things like that, because you can't necessarily see it in a box score. But I think if you ask James Borrego, and I think you ask any of the basketball operations of the guys, how invaluable and how with having someone like Bismack Biyombo around, I think they would have said hands down, tremendous assets. But, again, it is all about producing results, producing wins, and, I think what you're going to get from him, and it's just kind of a way of, you got to see which option is best for the future, which option is going to be best for the current core of guys, who they play with, who's going to be available. You kind of go in a little bit blind to an extent in the offseason about who's going to be available, what you can do, things like that. So we'll see from here.
And whether it is with the Hornets or another organization, he is going to have a spot in the NBA. The man was top 20 in the NBA in blocks per game and did it in limited minutes. So it'll be a big summer for the Hornets as well as for Biz individually, but he equipped himself well out there on the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. And that stuff matters. And I think people, you see the highlights and watching the playoffs now, and you see the guys going 20 and 15 every single night. The team that's going to win this at the end, for the most part, is you've got those supplementary guys. You've got those guys that fill in the gaps, that kind of help the team through tough times, that younger players can look up to. Certainly something that's very important for this Hornets team. Those guys matter. They really do. The NBA, there's, 20 true stars in the league. Most of the league is guys that fill in the gaps. And, the Hornets, I think, have a good one with Bismack Biyombo. Where he ends up next year, we'll see, but he certainly came through for the team this year.
We will be excited to keep track of where Bismack Biyombo ends up. And again, it'll be a busy offseason and an important one for both him and the Hornets. That's going to do it for this edition of the Hornets Hivecast. Invite you to keep tuned in on the HHC. We've got another one of these player profiles out every couple of days, so make sure you're keeping track wherever you get your podcast. Till next time, for Sam Purley, I'm Sam Farber saying it's been a pleasure and a privilege having you with us, and we'll talk to you next time on the Hornets Hivecast.
Thanks for listening to the Hornets Hivecast. For more coverage, visit Hornets.com.